Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I got another one of those stories sent to me by almost everybody. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to the version from roadandtrack.com, but widely reported, Ford employees stole millions of dollars worth of parts from factories, according to the police. Joe Kuczynski wrote this for roadandtrack.com, and I used to write for roadandtrack.com. So the stolen parts were reportedly taken to a third-party auto shop and then sold on eBay. And there may have been more than one shop involved, but I did a story not so long ago about someone stealing hundreds of engines from a factory in, I believe, India. But this is a variety of auto parts, not just one particular part. And it involves four men, including a former Ford employee, who have been arrested in connection to a theft ring that allegedly stole Ford parts directly from the assembly line. According to the Dearborn Police Department, the arrests were made on May 6th after a months-long investigation in conjunction with Ford Motor Company's Global Security Department. And Dearborn, of course, is in Wayne County, Michigan. And Ford has a very, very large presence there, including their world headquarters. The Dearborn police chief spoke to Fox 2, that's a TV station in Detroit, about the alleged theft ring. He states that the thieves had been taking Ford parts off the assembly line now for over 2 years, and the parts add up to millions of dollars in value. Parts were allegedly stolen from the Dearborn, the Flat Rock, and the Wayne plants. And Wayne, by the way, is an actual city within Wayne County. Flat Rock is a place, not just a geological oddity. And Dearborn, as I mentioned before, is a place associated with Ford Motor Company. These plants build some of Ford's most popular models, including the F-150s built in Dearborn. In Flat Rock, the Mustang, which you may have heard of. And in Wayne, they build the Ranger and the Bronco. Once the stolen parts were removed from the assembly line, they were allegedly taken to one of two third-party auto shops in Detroit. From there, the items were listed and sold on eBay. Police obtained a search warrant for two local residences and two Detroit businesses during the investigation. The police chief says when we executed a search warrant at one of the shops in Detroit, from the floor to the ceiling was stacked with brand new auto parts. I suspect they're Ford auto parts. Inside the shop, police say they found everything from Ford hoods, bumpers, headlights, and taillights, all in storage and allegedly waiting to be sold. The four men are in custody, although their names have not been released, as official charges have not yet been filed. Those will be forthcoming from the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. Those charges could include grand theft, criminal enterprise, and racketeering, and that's according to Fox 2. The auto shops that were searched in connection with the theft ring have been temporarily closed, and I suspect that's because they arrested a bunch of people who were necessary for the running of the operation. But I've mentioned before that I've heard all kinds of stories, and having grown up in Detroit, and then also practicing law here for over 30 years in the field of automotive law, I've encountered all kinds of people who've worked at the car companies. I've represented people, and we've sued the car companies. As a result, I've gotten to speak to people at the car companies because of litigation, and I've learned a lot of stuff and met a lot of people along the way. And the weird part is, I've mentioned before that one of my clients did security for one of the big three automakers. Think of Ford, GM, and Chrysler. Those are the big three that we always talked about here in southeastern Michigan. And my client worked for one of them, and I said, "Oh, what do you do?" And he said, "Oh, primarily he was involved with trying to track down the cars that just disappeared once they were built. Not parts of cars, the entire cars. So a car comes off the assembly line, it's supposed to go over here and get shipped over here, and somehow it never gets to where it's supposed to go." Okay, that's an entire car. Now, a car is mobile. It can actually propel itself down the road. So stealing a car, once you get in it, isn't that hard to do. Getting away with it might be harder, but okay. But I've heard of other people stealing parts off assembly lines. And I told you about the story about the people who stole the engines that just disappeared from a factory in India. But parts being stolen from manufacturers' assembly plants or manufacturing facilities, I've heard of before. In fact, this is another weird one. When I read these stories, it sparks memories for me. The good old days. And I got to tour a facility where one of the manufacturers that I mentioned earlier makes camshafts, okay? So if you know cars, you know what a camshaft is, but camshaft's a vital part of the car. And if your camshaft goes bad, you got to replace it. And it's not an easy part to replace, generally speaking. A water pump, for instance, in the average car, like let's talk about Chevy small blocks, a water pump is not that hard to replace. Camshaft, the same engine, a little harder. And so the weird part is that this company had a manufacturing facility where they're making camshafts. And I actually got a tour of the place, and I was walking along, and somebody was pointing out to me that's what they're doing over here and over here. And I can see that there's a workstation where somebody had camshafts, and they were all laid out in these little cradles that held them. And the person had like the equivalent of like calipers. They were measuring certain things on the camshafts to make sure the sizes were correct and they'd been machined properly. And somebody told me that occasionally, if they over-machine one, if they took off too much metal, the camshaft had to be scrapped. So take that camshaft and put it over here, it's going to get scrapped. Okay, so we're scrapping the bad camshafts, we're keeping the good camshaft. And so somebody then would have a job of taking the scrapped camshafts out and throwing them away. And they had some place where they would presumably recycle the metal, I'm guessing, but they would dispose of them because they were useless. Well, strangely enough, somebody said, wait a second. The average person looking at this camshaft can't tell that it's bad. In fact, it looks good. And so somebody was stealing the camshafts and taking them out to some place that said, hey, we'll buy camshafts from that factory if you got them. They go, here you go. And they'd bring camshafts in, and they're selling them dirt cheap because they were stolen. And then the people buying them could turn around and sell them for less than retail of the regular camshaft because they'd gotten them so cheap. But of course, they were bad. And so what would then happen is somewhere down the road, somebody who needed one of these camshafts to save a couple bucks would buy one from somebody else, maybe off of eBay or wherever they were dumping them, and they'd get a bad camshaft, but they wouldn't know it. They'd put the camshaft in their engine, and their engine would not run right. It would run poorly. And then, of course, the person's like, I can't believe this manufacturer. They build a bum engine, the camshaft goes bad in it, I replace it with another camshaft of theirs, and that's bad also. And of course it's bad. It was scrapped. It was supposed to be scrapped. And so you hear these kinds of stories. Now, that one right there, the camshaft story, is a weird one because it's such it's just the one part, okay? And you would wonder, like, is there really a market for those? Well, nowadays, you can market this stuff on eBay or the equivalent. And so somebody who's looking for a camshaft for a particular engine goes on to eBay, searches it, and finds somebody who goes, yeah, I've got these, brand new. And they're less than they cost at the dealership for some weird reason. And that's what happens. I've always been kind of wondering about the cars when people steal a whole car like that. They obviously don't have the title, the certificate of title or the certificate of origin. And what are they going to do with it? They're probably going to part it out, right? Chop it up and part it out. A lot of work involved there. And I've always been curious to know if they steal a car that's worth, say, $40,000 and they chop it up at a chop shop and part it out, how much they make for that. Because I suspect it's a lot less than that car is actually worth. But then again, trying to turn it into cash can be difficult. So it's a crazy story, but you wonder how somebody could walk out of that place with all of these parts stacked floor to ceiling, including hoods, bumpers, and headlights, taillights. That I understand. Headlights and taillights might be easier, but a whole bumper or a whole hood walking out of the factory as opposed to coming into the factory. Somebody might notice that. Now, you might know this, that a lot of these factories, especially the ones building hot vehicles, are running around the clock 24 hours a day. So it might be that 3 o'clock in the morning, there's not as much activity with people, being surveillance-wise, looking around and so on. That might be the case. But I'm sure you know that nowadays, security equipment is extremely inexpensive and good, by the way. So, there's probably cameras everywhere. So all they got to do is go, oh, let's check the cameras out to see what's coming out of the building that shouldn't be. Oh, here's a guy carrying a hood. It's tough to put that hood, like, inside your coat and walk it out, okay? A hood is a pretty big thing. Likewise with the bumpers, carrying out a whole bumper. Yeah, it's going to be kind of hard to do that quietly, figuratively speaking. So crazy story, but thanks to everybody who sent it to me. RoadandTrack.com published it, and Joe Kucinski wrote it. Ford employees stole millions of dollars worth of parts from factories, according to police, and they've made a bunch of arrests. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. A printer consists of 3 main parts: the case, the jammed paper tray, and the blinking red light.